Welcome, everybody. I appreciate taking time today to sit down and speak with me as we go through kind of the impacts of making sense of AI in our industries. There's a lot out there, so we'll go through it. And please, ask your questions in the Q&A section so we can answer at the end. Before we get started, just a little bit about who I am and what I am. As Lori mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Services here at IMAGINiT. What I bring to the table with this context is 25 years plus of consulting services, all manners of software, all manners of industries. Going through, I've led teams, I've led a lot of projects. I've got a couple decades of data scientist experience as a subject matter expert, data scientist, and the same with business transformations, helping customers be better with business, more efficiencies, things like that. Here at IMAGINiT, I've been at IMAGINiT for 2.5 years now. I lead all facets of our organization. That covers our consulting, our support, our training, our product side of the house. I'm helping our customers, with our team, great team here, helping really drive the alignment of technology and business goals. Really working on supporting our customers on their AI journeys and kind of their transformation practices as they go down the path of adopting, and really helping expand management roles as an advisor to our customers. So our focus at IMAGINiT here, my focus here is digital transformation, process transformation, roadmaps, and enterprise. So enough about me, let's jump into the meat of the process. What I'm going to cover today on the project is I'm going to talk about AI in industry. I'm going to talk at a very high level to start with, kind of some of the objectives we're seeing, some of the customer drivers, the business drivers, what we keep hearing from our customers as we talk about this roadmap. I'm also going to spend a little time with the Autodesk ecosystem. Autodesk has a great design and make report. There are things in there that are relevant to this journey. I've gone through and culled them out. I've got some examples. What that is a good source of data for us to really see what our peers are doing in the Autodesk ecosystem. Then we'll break into the journey itself. How do I get this? How do I start? How do I move? And from there, we'll go into what we're doing here at IMAGINiT in the AI journey, and then we'll close it out. So I want to start a little bit with AI in our industries. And I think the one thing I want to really talk about here is AI is everywhere. You can't turn on the TV, you can't go to a conference, you can't open up a piece of paper and see, nothing but AI. It's always there, it's everywhere. So how do we take it in our industry? Our industry has some very unique elements, some very unique processes. We've got to separate ourselves from everybody else looking at AI. When we look at the business drivers we have for AI within our industries, it's really about complexity and scale. How do I do more? How do I continue to improve without hiring an army to get it done? How do I get faster? How do I get better quality? How do I learn faster? How do I return investments to not only my customers, your customers, but your business? How do I make sure I'm compliant with regulatory? How do I make sure I meet all the things that are out there? How do I manage my staff? We all know you're all struggling with pain. I hear this all the time about staff retention, staff knowledge. We've had people who have been here for 15, 20 years. How do I get it out of their head? Where do I find new staff? How do I get to a more digital model? How do I get to a 3D model? How do I get to a better NPI? How do I get to a bigger simulation? How do I meet all my responsibilities around sustainability? How do I compete with my peers? These are the drivers that we hear on a regular basis, a daily basis, around what AI brings to our industries as a whole. The next thing we talk about really are some of the common objectives around AI. What are we seeing in AI that are really going across our industry? And these are different when you talk to your peers outside of our industry. Design efficiencies. I've got to get that time frame down. I got to be able to respond to things faster with a better product. How do I get my procurement faster? How do I reduce my cost? How do I improve my product lifecycle management from start to end? How do I integrate internally? We are now part of an enterprise that is broader than just design and architecture and the plant floor. How do I integrate with finance? How do I integrate with sales? And then take that to external. How do I work better with my partners? How do I collaborate better with our partners? How do I exchange drawings? How do I exchange ideas? That's more collaborative and can actually get transactions back and forth. And how do I do all of this without increasing my manpower and my costs? How do I increase my profitability? And I've got to stay at the leading edge of our competition so that I win more business and I get better results from what I'm doing. These are some of the common things we hear over and over again when we talk about our customers. I want to talk now about a little bit the AI process itself. So when we think about AIs, there's some key things I'm going to talk about today. There's some languages I'm going to use today that I really want you guys to be aware of. I'll use the term engines. So artificial intelligence has an engine. That's the processing speed. That's the CPU. That's the technology that gives you the results. I'll talk about rules. Rules are how you define to get an output. How do I define what a 3D drawing should look like? What are the rules I have to have? What are the pieces and parts that I can say if then else those rules? And the biggest piece is the language model. How you in your business speak. You've got to teach this engine what that means, how you're going to ask questions. And it can't be in programming languages. It can't be overly technical or it won't get done. You've got to talk in the everyday business language and teach this engine how to interpret that and give you those actionable insights. So when you think about an AI, you have structured data, you have storage of that data. It then gets through into rules and algorithms and patterns and languages to give you results. The other thing that AI is changing in our lexicon in our industry is when you think about data, most people think about a part number, a SKU, a price list, a equipment list, whatever. Data now includes your processes because processes become the language of the engine. So as we go through the rest of the day today, I want you to think about that and keep this in mind about how an AI works and what it really means. So now I want to leave the definition and kind of the foundation of setting up the conversation today. And I'll talk a little bit about Autodesk Design and Make report. I'll talk a little bit about what it is. And like I said, I've pulled out some very subsections of things that are relevant to an AI journey, that are relevant to us as we consider what we have to do. What's really cool about the Design and Make report, it goes to the Autodesk ecosystem. It gives us a historical trends. It asks a bunch of questions. It talks to thousands of people in the industry, customers, experts, futurists. It gives us a good collection of data that we can then analyze and interpret and help drive some decisions. Yes, it's Autodesk centric. Yes, it's part of the Autodesk ecosystem, but it's a good facet, a good source of information that we can look at to help drive what we have to do in the industry to go forward. So one of those pieces I pulled out a subsection of who they survey in the AECO space. You can see here they surveyed almost 2,000 professionals. You can see the breakdown of the various entities and the subdivisions. You can see the locations they went after. You can see the average experience. What's really interesting here is how many of them have Autodesk as their primary platform. And note how big the survey hit for decision makers in the company. What's really interesting about that data point is these are people who design strategies, design the visions, and direct how the company goes forward, where they spend their time, where they spend their money. That's a really key area because now we're getting leader impacts and leader data to help drive. So let's look at a couple of results that came out of this that are really relevant to what we're talking about today. It's no surprise that cost control and cost management for the third year in a row is the #1 challenge that the respondents are facing. But what we are seeing is the emerging technology, specifically AI, it keeps climbing. It was third place last year. Now it's second place. It moved talent acquisition training down one place. What this shows us and what this tells us from a data source standpoint is that people are looking at AI to do more. They're looking at AI to help with their cost management. Cost management doesn't mean cutting people, cutting costs, doing less. It means I've got to find a way to be more efficient. Moving talent down a row doesn't decrease the importance of the talent. It just says that AI is going to help with things like learning management, with things like workflow and efficiencies to help our people be better. So they're placing more importance. And what it really tells us is AI is now a core part of a business strategy and will continue to grow in its importance to the business. There's some insights that I've pulled out. When we talk about some insights around design and make, what you're seeing is there are 8 insights that are really themes of a business. Now, I'll tell you that behind the scenes here, there's a lot of slides, a lot of data. If you want more information from the design and make, please reach out to your rep. Please reach out to Autodesk, get a copy of it. There's a lot of information in there. But what is really fascinating to me about these themes, and it applies to our conversation today, is 4 of the 8 insights that came out of this data have an AI relevance, have an AI touch point. That shows the why AI is continuing and emerging tech is continuing to climb the charts in terms of importance for leaders of our industry. I'm going to pull 2 things out. I'm going to talk digital maturity, and I'm going to talk hype versus reality, because those are relevant for the rest of this conversation as well. So when we look at digital maturity, what this is really telling you a little bit is people, customers who believe that they are taking advantage of a digital program are more competitive, are getting a huge return on their investment, are increasing their performance levels, are being prepared to do more and more and more in the emerging technology space, have kept up with changes and are working more to be even more aggressive on changes. And this is in light of uncertain economic times. This is in light of changes to the business and the geographies we're dealing with. So it really shows that it's an important piece that people are really putting time in. The key is when we talk to customers about this and we ask them, why are you not doing this? Why are you not keeping up? It's not money. It's not desire. It's time. Time to plan, time to change, time to execute. Overcoming those with these customers are really helping them achieve greater heights. Second thing I want to talk about is hype versus reality. When you look at AI, and we've seen AI come out the last couple of years, it's everywhere. ChatGPT, you hear Autodesk talking about generative AI and Forma and Assistant. You hear OpenAI, you hear Salesforce. All these people are talking about AI. You can't avoid it, okay? What's happened when this came out with the big marketing blitz is what I like to call the shiny object syndrome. Everybody looked at it and go, that looks really cool. That looks like something I need. And there was expectations that were set that's an easy button. I put an AI in, that's all I have to do is go pick a technology, I plug it into my environment, I send it some of my drawings, my data, my processes, my SKUs, whatever the case may be. I hit a button, and magically I have a 3D drawing that's been done overnight, and it's 80% accurate, and I have starting from 0 versus 7 weeks. Or I hit a button and I get a new product specification, new product design, that comes out overnight, 2 days versus 4, 5, 6 months. Reality is that doesn't exist today. Are we getting there? Absolutely. Are we getting there fast? Absolutely. But what we've left now and what we're seeing now is we're starting to understand the leadership, and the Design and Make report shows that people are starting to separate hype to reality. They're having conversations. They're thinking about the journeys. You all here are having the exact same element here. What do I do? How do I do it? You're separating hype from reality. And what you're going to see here is that governance, data, change management, and business are going to be what you need to do on your journey to be successful to get this emerging technology into your ecosystems successfully. I want to leave Design and Make now. It's an influencer. It gives us some data. It's not the only answer. What we've been doing here is really looking at what's the journey? What does it look like? I'm going to share with you some things that are coming up that are holistic. They're not my ideas. They're not my scenarios. They belong to the public domain. You can go Google, you can go talk to a bunch of people, and they should tell you something very, very similar that I'm going to walk you through. But this is the journey. How do I get there? So I've set the foundation. We've talked about a little bit what the AIs are. Now, how do I do this? Where do I go? You want to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate this. It's a big, massive thing that you can do. Take it in bites, but keep it simple. And it breaks down into 4 key elements: process and data. AI engines live and die by the quality of data, by the quality of the process. We've all heard the term garbage in, garbage out. If you do not pay attention to the data quality and the process quality with an AI journey, and you feed it what is bad information today, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get the same garbage out 100 times faster. And it's not going to achieve what you are asking this technology to do. The next piece is your strategy. You must understand, you must think about it from what your industry wants. What do you need as a company? What do you need as an enterprise? And what are your objectives? And those are going to be different for everybody on this call. You may have a focus on increasing RFI response times. You may have a focus on getting to verification of as built. You may have a focus on getting a new product out and into the manufacturing line 4, 5, 6 times faster. Or you may have a broad objective of making AI ubiquitous across your enterprise. But you must define it. You must define the metrics. You must define the objectives and make sure everybody knows them in your organization. This can't be a top-down ivory tower scenario. It's got to be something that permeates top to bottom. Once you have those 2 things, you can start talking about the technology you want. And like I said, that could be 1, that could be 2, it could be a hybrid. And the last thing is test the heck out of it. Again, you're going to hear me repeat over and over again, language models, rules. You have to teach this technology how to speak your language. You have to teach this thing how to give the results you want. You have to learn when it gives you a bad result, how do I fix the language model? How do I fix the rules? Okay, it sounds daunting. It's just a process. But that's why you test. That's why you pilot. That's why you make sure everything works for what your objectives are, because now you've got a solid foundation a solid event that can then be productive for your organization. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Now, the call to action here is, what do I do? We get this question all the time. What do I do? If you haven't started a journey, start with your data. Get your data fixed. I'll talk a little bit about how you can go about that, some of the approaches, some of the methodologies here in a minute, but data. And right with it is processes. If you've got processes that you ask your people, why do you do it that way? And the answer is, we've always done it this way. That's probably a good process to go after to be more efficient. I implore you, have an adoption strategy, okay? What am I going to do? Get a project together. Understand the impacts to your business. Teach your people. You've got to make this such that it's not a IT project. It's not a programming project. It is a business project. And that means educating your people on how to use it. This will let you understand your impacts and work better. And what I call out here is follow the path. There's a hierarchy you can follow. There's a hierarchy you need to follow to be successful. Let's look at that hierarchy real quick. What I'm showing here is just one version. If you go Google the AI hierarchy to roadmap, AI implementation roadmap, I can give you all the Google terms you want. You're going to get something that looks similar to this. This just looks cool to me. I like this picture. But it's telling a story. It's telling a story that I've been talking about for the last 20 minutes, right? You must start with a foundation. If you jump into this at the AI layer here and do nothing else, think about that upside down pyramid. Is it stable? Does it stand on its own? Or will it fall over and crash? I can tell you from experience working with customers in this industry and without, that people have started at the top of this and they've ended up scrapping it to go back to the bottom and start from scratch. Almost 100% of the time. There's a few that make it work, but it's very painful. But you start with everything we just talked about. If you think about that simple journey I laid out, vision, strategy, culture, that's the baseline. What do I want this thing to do? Get my data, get my processes, standardize it, get them to the quality, make sure everybody understands from a staff standpoint what it means. When I get those 5 layers built on this 7-layer model, I'm ready for the technology. I'm ready to now use it because I know what I want to do and my people are ready for it. So you'll hear me say, follow the hierarchy, follow the path. This is what I mean. Continue to make sure you do this properly. I want to go down one more layer now. So we've been talking all about the journey. We summarized that. We've talked about the model and the foundation. We've talked about establishing your objectives. Now, let's think about some of the tactical things you can do. The first thing you can do is assess your readiness. What you see on the bottom here is the scoring. Okay, it's a very standardized scoring. This is a methodology you'll find on Google sites, websites across all the industries. People have been using this I've been using this for 15 years. This is how we come in and assess readiness and maturity of a business. Since we're talking AI, we're going to focus on data and we're going to focus on processes. You can see the elements we focus on in data. Data management, quality, governance, standards, controls. Is there an enterprise strategy we have to be part of? Business side, process standards, the governance of those, the knowledge of the processes. How do I train my people in process? How do I onboard new people? How do I get things out of people's head and put into a process? What are the controls I have? You evaluate yourself on the scale of 1 to 5. I've given this journey conversation to our customers well over 100 in the last 12 months. I asked the question during my conversation, where would you rate yourself on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being best, 1 being worst, on your data maturity? The average is about 2.5. I asked the same question about process maturity. I get a little higher there, 3.1. Now, I will tell you, in doing this for a couple of decades, 5s across the board are almost unheard of. And it usually means someone's telling a fib. But to be a good baseline foundation of readiness, you want to be around 3.8, 4.2 on average across these categories. If you're not there, then you have to get into programs that get you there. How do you do that? I'll start with data. You look at your data, you look at your sources, you look at where it comes from, you look at how you use it, you look at your transactions. Frankly, talk about pain points. What do you have to manually adjust every time you produce a drawing, every time you produce a spec? What changes? You're looking at manufacturing. What do I get when I get a product line, whether it's process or discrete? What do I end up with? Do I end up with what I got? Do I have to manually adjust it? Am I manually adjusting recipes? This is data quality. This is data standards. You go in, you start looking at this, you start making the point where a part is a part is a part, no matter who's talking about the part, internal or external. The price is the price is the price. The bill of materials is the same, no matter if it's in a financial system, a sales system, or a manufacturing system. It's the same thing. That's data quality. That's data standards. We're all talking the same way. So when you go ask somebody about a mullion, or you go ask somebody about a finished goods, you know that you're going to get the exact same answer because you're talking about the same thing. But you must also understand this comes with some continuous governance. One of my customers 10 years ago, we did an enterprise data management process globally. 18 organizations, that they had 50,000 SKUs. We spent 12 months doing data cleansing, data processes, governance, cleansing. They didn't follow through. 9 months after we had finished the project and gone live, their data quality was back where it was when we started, because they didn't follow the governance. They let people ignore the process. You can't do that if you're going to have an AI in your industry, in your company, in your ecosystem. You just can't do it. You talk about the business process side of the house. The same thing. Look at your pains. Look at where your assessment told you to go focus on. This may be 5 processes. It may be 50. The assessment will guide you of where to go look and how to go break this down. But you got to start a project that goes through and talks about, what's my definition? What are my goals? How does this process fit my vision? How does this process change, give me what I want to achieve in efficiencies design? This element here, I talked about governance on the data slide. Here I'm talking about your people. What are my business use cases? What are the steps? How do I test to make sure the new process works? And then you've got to train your people. This is where these transformations tend to fail. They spent all this time on new processes, new testing. They've gone through, they've looked at 5 people. They've got 50 people they forgot to train. So the 50 people always fall back to how they've always done it. So training is a key element here. And then this gets you your foundation. At this point in time, you now have got your data, you've got your vision, you've got your quality. We've hit 5 of the 7 layers of the hierarchy at this point in time. We're now ready to evaluate technology. I now can evaluate more consistently. I can go get something and get beyond the hype, get beyond the sales pitch, get beyond the sexy demo. And I can say, does this meet my requirements? Here's my vision, here's my objectives, here's my processes, here's my data. Do I get the results I want from this technology in this use case? It's a much better evaluation, and frankly, it'll be faster. Now, I will tell you, you can go to Google and you can put in AI engines for construction, AI engines for manufacturing. I will tell you, you'll get 500 results. How do you weed through the noise? This helps you weed through the noise. And frankly, so can IMAGINiT. I'll talk about what we're doing to help weed through that noise as well. Common question I get after I go through this. Okay, it all sounds great, all looks good, Mike. You know, I understand the data, I understand the assessment, I understand the process work, I understand getting my tech. How long does this take? How should I plan this? Let's take a quick look at a roadmap. Here's a sample roadmap. This roadmap shows 10 months. You can go faster, you can go slower. It's all about your business, your people, your ability to handle change, your ability to go at a pace that is comfortable to you. Generally speaking, people have day jobs too, okay? So the idea here is, yes, it can be done. But what you take from this, again, is consistency. Note how this roadmap is laid out. Yes, we parallel data and process. We parallel defining a strategy. We don't make it sequential. We don't have to. Because guess what? At the end of the blue, end of the yellow, we now have quick wins. I can take that data standard, I can take that business process strategies, I can put that in place with or without an AI, and I can get quick wins today. We have people who are doing that today with process transformations. They're cutting out steps, they're cutting out things, they're making their people happier. They're cutting out manual processes without anything else. They're changing workflows, they're changing recipes automatically. That's a quick win you can get today before you even implement your AI. Again, we spent a lot of time on foundation, spent a lot of time in training in the dark blue. When we get to the orange, we're piloting and testing. This is a roadmap of what this looks like. And again, you can go faster, you can go slower. It's customized to what your business can accommodate and handle. Because keep in mind, this is an impact to how you do business. All right, so I've talked about the journey. I've talked about some of the details. I've talked about scenarios. I want to talk now about what's IMAGINiT doing. We get asked on a regular basis, how are we helping? So I want to spend a couple minutes on what we're doing, where we're headed, where we're going. With the whole objective, our objective on our journey internally is to help weed through the hype and the noise. Is to look at a set of business cases that we've worked with customers on, that we've vetted to make sure we know what the steps are, that we've used our expertise to look at and say, yep, this is pretty standard or not. We've taken some scrubbed data. We want to make sure we stay away from confidential stuff, but we're looking at all the elements, everything we've talked about. We get asked, how do I do this? So we've broken it into a two-phase, a two-pronged approach. There's the tactical aspects, assessments, maturity assessments, are you ready? There's the data program, the process programs, the transformation programs. There's defining your strategy, defining your roadmap, defining your objectives. There's training your people. And are there things there you can train? You know, LMSs will help with training your people with new processes. You know, how do we help support them with the tasks that we've changed, right? And the technical roadmap that comes with it. Then there's this strategic side, the things that we have to have for an AI to be functional. Am I ready for an AI? Do I know what I want to do? Do I want to bring in a third party to help me with my transformations? All these things are part of that we get and how we advise our customers. Our internal projects, we're following the exact same path. Okay, we're following what we preach. Keep it simple, follow the path. Process, data, business. What's unique about us is that we're looking at it from a customer lens perspective, an Autodesk perspective. So what we have that's a little unique is understanding how we incorporate what Autodesk is doing from a technology standpoint. The data models, the Revit models, the Autodesk AIs. That's intrinsic to our strategy because our ecosystem contains a lot of Autodesk. At the same time, we're looking at it from a standpoint of looking at the AEC space, the manufacturing space. We're defining use cases that are relevant to the industry. We're not being generic, we're not being high level, we're diving into what's relevant to the industries. At the same time, we're being selective on what those use cases are. There's no way that I can get to a result trying to evaluate 1,000 use cases. The 40 we've got are plenty, but they are representative of what you can do. And they are applicable fairly consistently across different types of customers, both in manufacturing and AEC. We've taken that 500 things, we've built some scenarios, we're evaluating it. We're down to about 38 engines that we think have staying power, that have real world applications that we can actually use both in manufacturing and AEC. We want to further cut that down to probably less than 10. Because our ultimate goal here is to take our use cases, build our rules, build the language model, put them into the technology, and run tests through our own pilots. We want to evaluate what's happening there. We want to see what's going on. Then we want to publish those results to our customers and to the industries of here's what we've done, here's what we tested, here's the data we used, here was our objective, and here's the results. That will help customers, that will help our customers navigate some of the complexities of how do I get to a rules engine? How do I get to a language model? How do I get to a use case? That's our journey. That's what we're doing internally. We're probably, last time I looked at the timeline, about 3 months away from running our pilots. We're in the teach the rules, teach the language model phase. So I want to share some of the use cases. I've talked a lot about our use cases, talked about what we're doing. So I'm not going to read these to you. I'll let you guys kind of digest them as you go through and look at them. But this gives you a flavor of some of the things that we're looking at from a use case standpoint, things that we're going to teach, both rules and language model, and plug them into a couple of engines and see what happens. So we've got a lot of pieces here, right? There's probably 8, 10, 12 things here. Again, there's more we could be doing. We've got to start somewhere, keeping it simple. Here's some other cases from design engineering. Again, you can see some of the scenarios out there. There'll probably find some things in there that are relevant to your industry or your company or what you do as a business today. I will say everything I've shown you here is we have talked to our customers. We've asked for opinions. We've asked for inputs. We've asked for insights. That's been our investment to try and figure this out. Here's some construction examples. You can see we're focusing on a subset. We're not trying to boil the ocean here. We've got to focus on a subset. But the end state will be results and examples that we can bring back to our customers in the industries and say, here's what we did, here's what we saw, here was the results. Does this apply to what you're being done? And it actually sets us up as a foundational to say, hey, customer come back and say, I want you to do this simulation, or I want you to add this scenario. Here's the 5 things, can you test for me? We will now have this baseline set up that once we get through the process step and the data step that goes with that, we can now plug it in, relatively quickly. I want to close out today with really the idea of what I've attempted to give here is give you some ideas, give you some thoughts, plant some seeds that you can take on this journey. There's some influencers that you can consider. There's a lot of things. There's far more that I can talk about than I can do in 45 minutes. Okay, there's a lot to it. Hopefully I've given you a foundation to think about and some ideas and some business things to really consider, no matter where you're at in your journey. If you're on the way, a couple things to check. If you're not sure how to get started, hopefully we've given you an idea how to start. But when we wrap this up and talk about this, it's here, it's real, it's expanding. We can't ignore it. I've been watching this stuff for 20 plus years. In the industry, we look for trigger events. What's a trigger event, right? AI is a trigger event. It is so pervasive that everybody is going to have one in the next 3 years. So the call to action is, if you haven't started, you need to get started. You need to figure out your strategy. We can help you with that. If you're underway, make sure you're following the right path. Make sure you don't have the inverted pyramid going on. I want to share some thoughts that I've got from others. I've got a lot of colleagues that I worked with in consulting world. MIT does an ongoing session. If you've not seen them, you can go look at them. They have anywhere from 3-week to 9-month programs. But what you're seeing from these thoughts, these are their thoughts, not mine. Everyone needs to be thinking about a strategy. Everyone needs to start planning. They are putting out timelines that says you need to start planning a program and executing in the next 12 to 18 months to stay in the game. You've got to have a pilot. I'll give you an example. When I had my class at MIT last year, they were talking 12 to 18 months to get a policy, get a pilot, and then get to a productive use in 3 years. They've reduced that in the last 12 months. Now it's 12 months, get your program going, get moving. You got to have a pilot in place in 24 months so that you're ready to hit it less than 3 years. Now's the time. They're all saying the same thing. Now's the time to get prepared. And wrapping all this up, we can help. The heart of this is the data, the processes, the people. The 3-legged stool comes into play here. Vision of 3-legged stool. Your data is one leg, your process is a leg, your people a leg. They've all got to be equal. They've all got to be treated properly. Otherwise, it's a real wobbly platform to sit on. AI is no different. Talk with us. Let us help you with your roadmap, how we get started with this. And remember, follow the path of the hierarchy. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Lori, I will turn it over to you for questions.